that he definitely is responsible for her disappearance, but I still feel like that. But it's just like, it's a weird thing for me, right? Because I don't necessarily know if they were both super drunk, but he seemed like he was definitely more sober than she was. So the hope would be, I mean, he wasn't...
If I disagree that he was maybe more sober, the fact that he walked in his house and tried to walk up the steps and lost the contents of his guts means that he was pretty toasted and was probably carrying around a big belly full of hard booze.
Yes, but the reason that I say he was more intoxicated than, or she was more intoxicated than him, is that she wasn't even able to walk.
Yeah, she
at
was
that point. He was at least ambulatory, right?
Yeah.
I mean, in decision making and whatever aside, he wasn't like so drunk that he was just falling over, sitting down.
There is such a thing
like
as being able to function while blackout drunk.
Sure, yeah.
And so that's the only thing that I'm getting at, is that he may have been, it's like sleepwalking at that point. He's just doing things and has a drunken mission.
Who the hell knows?
Yeah.
Well, but I guess I will add to that I do feel, and I'm sorry, Corey, if you're listening to this, but I really genuinely do feel like he knows more about what happened that night than he's saying that he knows. I know that face that you're making, Steve.
Yeah, it's hard to say.
It's hard to say.
I just think he does.
We've all lost time, from a heavy night of boozing.
Yeah.
But it seems unlikely that he actually killed her, abducted her, or killed her or anything.
Like intentionally.
Well, unless his roommate Mike is lying also.
Oh yeah,
Because,
that would have to be part of this.
And what's the other guy, Jay?
Yeah.
Jay would have to be in on it as well.
Be lying also.
So why don't we move to the next theory that kind of helps explain all of this lying that may or may not be happening.
The not murdery theory?
The not foul play, but kind of foul play.
All right.
One thing I have not mentioned yet is that Lauren actually had what is called long QT syndrome, which is a heart condition that basically means your heartbeat can be really off and actually can be spontaneously fatal in and of itself. Like, you can literally just keel over and die from having this, being perfectly healthy. Just sitting there totally sober and like normal all the time.
Well, luckily for Lauren, I don't think that's what killed her.
I don't know. So that it's actually interesting because Lauren's parents are very sure that Lauren is dead, and they really think her drink may have been drugged, but that it was drugs and alcohol caused her to have a cardiac attack or arrest of some kind.
Yeah, the rhythm gets off, and then it skips a beat, and then it misses
stops.
a beat, and then it doesn't pick back up.
I would actually kind of even maybe give a vote to falling over backwards and smashing your head on a concrete step, maybe having a cerebral hemorrhage or something like that. That's a theory too.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah.
It wouldn't surprise me to find out that she had been roofied or otherwise date drugged. I remember that being really big. When I was in Bloomington, Illinois, I was there until 2010. So I was there kind of around the same time, and it was like a really big thing. I got lucky, and they thought my Long Island iced tea, or they thought my friend, my like gay best friend's Long Island iced tea was mine and drugged his instead of mine. But like he went from like, totally fine to like crazy drunk within, 10 minutes and just had no memory of the entire night. And it was just... But, it wouldn't surprise me to find out that she had been drugged in one way or another. But also, I think it's not a crazy idea to think that her parents are just unwilling to see how far into the party scene Lauren was.
It's not an uncommon thing with parents to justify some of it to deny another part that's less convenient or is more painful.
Yeah, so, for them to say, like, yeah, she was drinking and that's fine, but she must have been drugged. Well, it sounds like she was doing a lot of drugs on her own accord.
But the one way to tell if she was roofied in the bar is just to check her state going in and then her state coming out. We know when she left the bar, she was hammered. Was she already hammered when she went into the bar?
That's great. It's hard to tell, though. I mean, she was there for like an hour.
Yeah,
40 minutes.
CCTV footage might, if they actually have video of her, they could probably tell she was staggering then. I mean, of course, if she was really hammered then, would they have let her into the bar?
But I mean, there are some drugs you can do and it'll take 40 minutes to kick in, right? Stuff could have kicked in while she was at the bar, as well as her being drugged at the actual bar. So during the pregame thing we mentioned, there were some drugs, which I didn't see, but Steve, you said it was on the Wikipedia, which...
Yeah, well, and I've
I
seen
didn't.
some other places they found coke in her room, not a lot, but a little bit of cocaine, and then according to Jay, they had been they'd been crushing up and snorting Klonopin, which is an anti-seizure medication.
Which, like, fine.
Well, I had to read about it. Apparently, people like it because it's a relaxant. It's not a stimulant. It's kind of a relaxant. So it's
Kind of the anti-coke.
yeah, exactly. So it's weird. I mean, it's weird to me when people like do two drugs. I want to get really high, but then I need something to bring me right back down. So I'm gonna. I mean, that almost seems like they were spiking, doing
Totally.
that, up and down
Yeah.
routine and throwing booze in the middle just to see what happens.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Sounds like fun.
yeah.
No.
So, it's not crazy to think that, she had just overindulged. And, I mean, Lauren was obviously very aware of her own heart condition. So any number of the combinations of any of the things that we've talked about already could have really just caused a massive heart failure for her.
Mhm.
I mean, or just being sober, obviously. And then again, or it could have been one of the 4 or 5 times she fell over and hit her head real hard.
Yeah,
Could
that'll
have
do
done
it.
it.
Well, being aware of her own heart condition and the potential impacts of drugs and alcohol on that, I think you can counteract that with the I'm 20 years old and invincible.
Yeah.
I will never die.
Yeah, I mean, it seems like she had a couple of scares, so it is interesting that she still was feeling like she was so invincible, but, whatever.
She probably just felt as long as she took her meds, she'd be okay. So-
Yeah, well, I've also heard some reports from students that were at Indiana State University at the time, and the consensus from them was that Corey, Mike, and Jay were actually well-known high-volume drug dealers in Bloomington at the time. So the theory here would go that through whatever kind of circumstances, either Lauren OD'd, just flat out OD'd, or she got super drunk and, whatever. But for whatever reason, they found themselves with a dead Lauren on their hands.
Mhm.
And since they were drug dealers
And loaded.
instead of doing the responsible, humane thing and, calling the cops or taking her to the hospital or whatever, they decided that they would dump her in the Ohio River, which there is some corroboration to this story, though it's been redacted or retracted.
Retracted.
Yeah, I think it is.
Redacted
That was-
uses the big
Yeah,
black
no,
marker.
not that.
That was a jailhouse snitch thing, right?
It was a jailhouse snitch thing, but it was a weird jailhouse snitch thing in that they got a tip from the cellmate of one of the guys
I
who
love
was
this
friends
story.
with them. And then they interviewed the guy who was friends with that group, and he said, "No, I don't know anything about that. I've never done anything about that, and I don't want to be involved in that at all. Absolutely not. I have no knowledge of that whatsoever." In kind of like a too frantic way.
Well,
Almost.
Listen, that guy's story is hilarious, and he is probably gun shy, because he is. If he is the one who, I love this, he got so loaded on drugs that he walked out of his house wearing nothing but a baseball cap, holding a gun, and started shooting it. And it is it's the funniest looking CCTV images I've seen ever, because you're like, wait, I mean, it's grainy, but is he wearing skin colors? Oh God, no, he's naked.
Yeah, it's pretty intense. So he said that he knew the guys, and he actually said that he had helped initially with the whole dumping, and he said, said it to some jailhouse guys, and then totally retracted it.
And it might not have actually been about Lauren. That may be why he was so scared, because he may have helped somebody with a body for something else in his dealings.
The reason that it came up was because they were watching a thing
Right.
on Lauren, and he looked at the pictures of Lauren and said, "Oh yeah, that's the body that I helped dump in the Ohio River."
Yeah, but the thing about it is I heard this story, and they basically loaded her into a car, took her down, and just threw her in the river.
Mm-hmm.
Which, to me...
Why didn't she float?
Well, to me, it's like that's a prescription for having the body turn up about 20 feet downstream, tangled in the brush. It's like you want to have a boat, take her out in the middle. At least she'll show up miles downstream, hopefully.
Yeah, she's not a hard drive.
No,
Yeah.
not exactly.
No, she's not. But I don't know. I mean, it's also not crazy unheard of that people get really lucky dumping bodies.
Oh yeah.
And she got stuck, under a rock at the bottom, and
Usually they pop up sooner or later, though.
yeah,
But,
well, Or, it's possible she could have popped up and, a bunch of miles down the river and she's a Jane Doe somewhere. I mean, it's possible.
Seems to me that every time they find a stray body anywhere within a couple 100 miles, they always test to make sure it's not her, though.
They do. That's true.
Yeah. Yeah. Another possibility too is that she didn't OD at all. Another one is that she just like sort of lost consciousness because of a cerebral hemorrhage, and they thought she just passed out, so they just figured, we'll let her sleep it off. The next morning she's cold and stiff.
Yeah.
And it's like,
yeah,
maybe something happened here. And maybe, by the way, and especially if somebody had actually maybe slipped her a roofie.
Yeah.
And that's in her bloodstream, then that's kind of incriminating.
Yeah. So, I mean, realistically, when it comes down to it, I do feel that that Mike, Jay, and Corey know more, that their stories are not exactly what happened that night. I think that's just because it gives me the most closure.
I was gonna say, 'cause I've been around enough super blasted but uncooperative people. Joe and I used to know a girl who would show up and we would be having a beer and she'd walk in just housed, and then you would find out she had been doing some drugs as well. She would just fall flat on her face and people would try to help her, and she was combative. She's like, no, I'm fine, leave me alone. And people were like, let me walk you home. No, like, people do this.
Yeah.
And so that's why, having seen that firsthand enough times, I'm not willing to completely say that these boys, while probably happy to get a problem child off of their hands, may not have actually done anything, and she may have just left and there was just no way to hold her. I mean, unless you tie somebody down.
Yeah, but then what do you think happened to her?
Well, I think that there is that possibility that she was just a random abductee. It happens. It's entirely to be very vulnerable. At 4:30 in the morning, a very tiny girl, 90 pounds, hammered, staggering, and she would obviously be a target. Yeah, and so, I think it's entirely possible. I mean, obviously, you kind of got to go, when anybody disappears or dies or is murdered or anything, you kind of immediately look at their immediate circle of friends.
Totally, yeah.
But, that's not true 100% of the time, that it was a friend or a family member or whatever who did it. It could actually have been, and she was definitely a ripe target.
Yeah.
It's just a question of did the right dude or the wrong dude, I guess, turn up at the right time.
Totally.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, and I tried to look. I mean, it's not as if Bloomington has a rash of college-age girls being abducted and killed. There's been 3 in the last 20-some years. One was 2000 or the late 90s. There was the girl...
Holly, what's her name?
Yeah, and she was a couple of years later, but they caught the dude who took her and killed her.
Yeah, and he was a big suspect in this one. I think his name was Messel. Was it Messel? Gary Messel, something like
familiar,
that. But he was... I don't know. He didn't do a great job of getting rid of Holly's body.
No.
I mean, there was one girl who was not a college student who just lived in Bloomington who also went missing, and I believe she's still missing. She was like 29 when she went missing. Almost within the year of when Lauren went missing. So certainly there is a possibility that there was just
a serial killer
or serial abductor or whatever.
Yeah, I mean, there's always circumstances. I mean, one of the things that they did that it's really weird the way they went about it, but they searched the local dump in case they could find her body, which I don't know how good of a search that you could take on an active dump site, because the theory is somebody killed her and threw her into the trash, kind of like what Lonnie, the Grim Sleeper, Lonnie, his last name slipped my mind, or somebody didn't put her in a garbage bag and just put her in the trash, or she was so drunk she was trying to find somewhere to go to sleep and crawled into a dumpster, which was then picked up, not too long after, and she was crushed.
I don't know. Somehow, I don't think Lauren could have possibly been that drunk. I didn't know her, of course, but I've never, in my drunkest moments, thought it would be a great idea to crawl into a dumpster and take a nap.
I would agree with that. I don't think she probably did it on her own. But no, I think, there was a pretty sizable investigation and search that happened for her, and one of the things they did.
2 weeks they spent at the dump, right?
They did, yeah. And I think they probably did a pretty good job. But I guess it's true. We can't rule out that it was just spontaneous. But Yeah, I think that's all the theories.
But yeah, that's about it. Well, there's always she ran away to start a new life, which is probably not a good one.
We could hope, I guess.
Well, you could hope.
Yeah.
There's always a possibility too that she wasn't murdered. Maybe she's being held against her will even today.
I don't like thinking about that one though.
I know that kind of sucks too. Yeah, it does.
No, I don't really have anything else. I mean, there's talk of people being abducted for sex slavery rings, so it's something akin to what Joe was saying, but there is illicit activity. It doesn't seem that Bloomington would be a place to go picking up girls to then take them to a larger city. It doesn't make sense.
Well, college town.
Yeah, it's just that it's an hour away from the next biggest town, which seems to be the problem. That was the reporting.
I don't know
that
enough about
the
slave.
You probably don't want to.
I don't. Really, yeah.
So really, I got nothing. I mean, I don't think that the guys did anything.
Yeah. I don't know why I do. I just do.
You just don't trust men.
I just don't trust.
You don't like guys.
College men. College age dudes.
Those three guys I just do not trust for some reason.
Well, there's that, and that didn't really help their case. I understand why they lawyered up, but it always looks a little bit bad to the public.
Well, it's not the act of lawyering up. It's more the withholding of any relevant information is really the thing that looks guilty. But it's whatever.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
All right. So if you want to see some of the links to our research, or buy swag, or see a list of all of the episodes we've ever done, you can do all of those things on our website, which is thinkingsidewayspodcast.com. You can listen to us there as well and download, or you can listen to us and stream us or download us from pretty much anywhere fine podcasts are provided. If you can leave a comment and a rating on those podcasts, that's always great for us. And don't forget to subscribe. You can find us on social media. We've got Twitter, which is Thinking Sideways. We've got a subreddit, which is just Thinking Sideways. And we have a Facebook group and a Facebook page. So like the page and join the group. And you can send us an email if you have case suggestions, if you want to talk to us about how we're wrong about everything.
Or just tell us how awesome we are.
Just tell us how awesome we are. We do respond to all of those emails. We're getting pretty slow these days because we're getting a lot of emails.
Don't let that discourage you.
Yeah, but send us an email anyway, and
Absolutely.
we'll get back to you as soon as we can.
Yeah.
That email address is thinkingsidewayspodcast@gmail.com. All of that having been said, I think we're going to just go ahead and get on out of here.
Sounds like a plan.
Oh, all right. Ta-ta.
Bye, guys.
Bye, everybody. This episode of Thinking Sideways is not brought to you by the layer of dust on your cleaning supplies. Instead, it's brought to you by Talkspace, the online therapy company that lets you message a licensed therapist from anywhere at any time. Can't imagine fitting another appointment into your life? Well, with Talkspace, therapy is as easy as sending your therapist a message. No commutes, no leaving the office, and no judgments. To match with the perfect therapist for a fraction of the price of traditional therapy, go to Talkspace.com/sideways and use the code SIDEWAYS to get $45 off your first month and show your support for the podcast. That's Sideways and Talkspace.com/sideways. This episode is also brought to you by Sharp Objects. From the author of Gone Girl, the producer of Get Out, and the director of Big Little Lies comes the HBO limited series, Sharp Objects. Amy Adams stars as Camille, a reporter who returns to her hometown to investigate the murders of two young girls. The grisly case soon brings Camille's own scars to the surface. Hailed as a top-of-the-line detective story by Variety, watch new episodes of Sharp Objects Sundays at 9 and catch up on HBO Now.
Thinking Sideways.
Hey guys, welcome to another episode of Thinking Sideways, the podcast. I am Devin, joined as always by
Joe
and
Steve.
And today we're going to talk about another mystery.
Ooh.
It's a disappearance. I guess I've been on a disappearance kick lately.
Like for the last year.
Is this like foreshadowing?
It's
Are you about to
5 years.
disappear yourself?
Possible. Yeah. We are